That movie sucked.
I kind of liked it.
Movie Night Crew Network.
Dear Mr. Potter, we have received intelligence that a hover charm was used at your place of residence this evening at 12 minutes past 9. As you know, underage wizards are not permitted to perform spells outside school, and further spell work on your part may lead to expulsion from said school. Decree for the Reasonable Restriction of Underage Sorcery 1875, paragraph C. We would also ask you to remember that any magical activity which risks notice by members of the non-magical community, Muggles, is a serious offense under Section 13 of the International Confederation of Warlocks Statute of Secrecy. Enjoy your holidays. Yours sincerely, Mafalda Hopkirk. Improper use of magic office, Ministry of Magic.
What's up, potheads? Welcome to the restricted section, in which a bunch of nerds with potty mouths reread the Harry Potter series for the umpteenth time and discuss how the story and its themes have stayed with a generation into adulthood. Thank you for listening. If you haven't done the reading, don't worry, we did it for you. Here's what we are talking about today.
Chapter 2, Dobby's Warning. In this chapter, we get to meet Dobby, and it's a nightmare. The house elf, after introducing himself to Harry, oscillates back and forth between delivering cryptic warnings and doling out self-punishment unto his self. It's really loud. As a reminder, the Dursleys are downstairs hosting a dinner party with the Masons because Uncle Vernon is trying to score this super sexy drill deal. And needless to say, eventually they can hear Dobby. And he won't give Harry any answers. He's just like, you can't go back to Hogwarts. It's bad news. Just believe me. I'm a stranger. I'm obviously a little unhinged. You have to believe me. Harry obviously doesn't believe him, especially after it comes to light that Dobby has been stealing Harry's mail. So he has all these letters from Hagrid, Hermione, and Ron from over the summer. And basically, he gives Harry an ultimatum. He's like, I'll give you these letters if you promise not to go back to Hogwarts. And Harry's like, I can't do that. Which, I mean, he could probably just lie, but whatever. And then Dobby's like, well, you leave me no choice. And so he runs downstairs and Harry runs after him and they go into the kitchen where Aunt Petunia's beautiful pudding is for this dinner party. And Dobby explodes it. He hurls it into the ground.
I threw it on the ground.
And it explodes everywhere. And then with a crack, he disapparates and he's gone. Harry, obviously covered in whipped cream and really shocked. Uncle Vernon tries to blow it over, which good on him. He's still trying to salvage this deal, which is all fine and well until the owl comes and delivers this letter that I read in our introduction. Not the last time we're going to see a violation of the decree for the reasonable restriction of underage sorcery. And it turns out that Mrs. Mason is terrified of birds of every sort. So the deal, needless to say, does not happen. Uncle Vernon locks Harry in his room for days. He installs a cat door so Aunt Petunia can give Harry meals through the cat door. So him and Hedwig are living just on cold, shitty vegetable soup. And then he wakes in the middle of the night to a rattling noise, and it's Ron Weasley at the window. Welcome, 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 one and all, to the restricted section. Woo! We're here.
Hello.
Yay!
We're all here. Today we're talking about Chapter 2 of Chamber of Secrets, Dobby's Warning. Andrew, what's up? How you been lately?
Not too bad. I went to this really cool wedding recently. It was really great. Fantastic.
Were you the celebrant?
I mean, I was on stage.
It was my wedding. It was me and Sean's wedding. Good. I'm glad you were there.
Yeah, it would have been bad if I hadn't shown up.
I was going to say we would have figured it out, but I truly don't think we would have. We would have faked it.
Yeah.
Grace, hello. How you doing?
Hey there. I'm doing great.
Yeah, we talk all day.
How are you doing, Christina?
Good.
Yeah, I know. There's nothing new going on here.
Yeah, my past 2 hours have been great.
Yeah.
And then our very special guest today is, drumroll, but no drumroll because that's a loud thing, my
husband Sean.
Hi.
Air horn.
Brr, 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 brr.
I know. Where's Mary Clay?
I know. Yes, he is my husband. And as you know, from if you've been listening to even just this episode, that's a new thing. Sean, tell us a little bit about your history with Harry Potter, like your history with the books or the movies.
Oh, where to begin? I've got such a long history. It started when I was just a wee lad, when I started reading the series and promptly finished it. And that was the first and last time that I read them.
How old were you? Was it like when they were first coming out?
Yeah. So I don't really remember much at all. So I don't remember much of the books. And I remember bits and pieces of the movies. I would not call myself nearly as much of a super fan as you guys are, but I'm glad to be here, and I will be offering the Joe Public perspective today.
What Hogwarts house are you?
I would say Gryffindor.
Sean, come on.
No.
Why does Mike lie and say he's a Slytherin, but then you lie and say you're a Gryffindor? Like, what is that?
Yeah, I'm definitely a Slytherin.
Yeah, I second that. Well, thanks for being here today. We'll try to make this as painless as possible. So, Dobby's warning. It's a pretty high stress episode. I mean, chapter. The whole time, it's just like, oh no, oh god, oh no, please don't, oh god. And also, I was reading this aloud to Sean, and like 80% of this is Dobby's dialogue, which is not great fun to read aloud. Definitely, I felt very annoying the whole time.
Well, it even specifies that if you're doing Dobby's voice, it has to be shrill enough that it would like carry downstairs.
Yeah.
That's how high pitched this elf's voice is.
So high pitched that the audio levels would not sound good on this podcast.
Sean, how did she do? Did she reach those registers?
Yeah, I was transported back to the movies, closed my eyes for a minute and felt like Dobby was standing right in front of me.
Well, before we get started, I just want to say a couple things. So here are those things. For those who have somehow not yet received the memo, here is your memo. We, the restricted section, now have a Patreon account. It's very cool. For as little as 25 cents an episode, you can support the podcast, and we have some very, very cool reward tiers, including bonus episodes, monthly bookmarks, Zoom happy hour hangouts with the crew, and just like our general love and gratitude, which is probably the most valuable of all those things I just listed. We have already released one bonus episode. Our July bonus episode was Book One Trivia with Brooke and Haley. That was very fun. So to find out who knows more about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Brooke or Haley, please go subscribe to our Patreon. Is that how you say that? Subscribe? Join? Patronize us? Yeah, patronize us. That's right.
They become a patron.
Become a patron, also known as patronizing. Our August episode is going to be a book review of Chuck Tingle's newest release, Trans Wizard Harriet Porber and the Bad Boy Parasaurolophus.
I am so excited. Christina, I think for anyone who doesn't know, you should explain the cultural identity that is Chuck Tingle.
Do you want to? Because I actually only learned about Chuck Tingle because of this. But if we have the same working knowledge, then I can do it.
Oh, he essentially writes what is gay erotica, but what started off as gay erotica became very crazy. Things like, I think he's had books where he's had sex with or I was pounded in my butt by the personification of the feeling of loneliness, like things like that.
Oh, wow.
Titles usually have things like pounded in the butt. He's had multiple interactions with Bigfoot, many mythical creatures, really. And it even got like very meta. I'm pretty sure that he has books that is like pounded in the butt by my book, pounded in the butt. So it's like
what a creative genius.
True, like I said, a cultural icon. The person that is Chuck Tingle has something ridiculous, like 50 to 100 plus. I'm not sure how many it is. There's tons of books that he's put out, and I've never actually read one.
I haven't either. This is the one.
I'm so excited.
So if you want to hear that bonus episode, you're going to need to head over to our Patreon, which the link is in the show notes. That brings me to my next point. I just want to give a really special shout out to one of our fans, Claire. Claire, I know you're listening, and 2 out of 2 weeks, you've messaged me to tell me that the link I said was in the show notes was in fact not in the show notes. And I'm just so grateful to you. So thanks for helping us with the show notes. I swear to God, maybe this episode will actually have that link in the show notes. And if it doesn't, I'm sure you'll message me. Thank you for being a crucial part of this podcast team.
Thanks, Claire.
Claire? Wow, Claire.
I
She's
know.
working harder than every person on this podcast.
I could not agree more. And they're also a patron on Patreon. This episode is sponsored by Matt Barger, patron from Patreon. Thank you so much, Matt Barger. I wrote you a little poem. It doesn't rhyme, I'm sorry. Esteemed patron, you are our favorite child. You are our benevolent grandparent. You are the light of our life. You are the best. Thank you for patronizing us.
And just remember, fans, we love all of our fans equally, but some we love more equally.
Indeed. So, just as a reminder, the last chapter, The Worst Birthday, ended with Harry crossed to his bedroom on tiptoe, slipped inside, closed the door, and turned to collapse on his bed. The trouble was, there was already someone sitting in it. So, then the beginning of this chapter, Dobby's Warning, I mean, the name of the chapter is Dobby's Warning, so the person is Dobby.
Are we settled on that pronunciation? I mean, I was going with Dobby.
Adobe. Adobe Reader.
I definitely pronounced it in my child brain as Dobby.
I think
But
I
I
did
now
too.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that, but I definitely.
Because
I was
kids don't
just
know how
trying
to
to make a
read no
stupid
good.
joke.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was like, 2 B's?
The little creature on the bed had large bat-like ears and and bulging green eyes the size of tennis balls. Harry knew instantly that this is what had been watching him out of the garden hedge that morning. So this is a creature he's never seen before, right? He's met goblins, he's met trolls, he's met centaurs. This is something different. And, yeah, do you guys remember reading this chapter when you were kids for the first time?
I do. This is the first time I've read it that Dobby really kind of messed with me. I love Dobby as a character. I love everything about him, except for the fact that it really hit me way harder this time that, yeah, he's a slave. That's exactly what he is. He is a slave. He's a slave that wants to be freed.
Yeah, it's really, it's definitely hard to read. Oh my god, and just like before we get any further into this, I want everyone to know. I don't remember who was at this party, but a year ago for Sean's birthday, we had a fantastic Beats and Where to Find Them themed party. It was just like a Wizarding World themed, like, DJ party. And last week's guest, Jason, came dressed as Sub Dobby. And his wife, his beautiful wife, came as Luscious Malfoy, leading him around on a leash.
It was fantastic.
Amazing.
It was incredible. That was a great costume. So yeah, I was definitely thinking about that throughout this whole chapter. Like, not just Jason's costume, but like, just like he needs therapy, dude.
Yeah, are we just gonna go ahead and get into this now?
Yeah, we're getting into it. Let's just get into it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
The thing that I couldn't help but notice with Dobby, and this might be because I've made a point to listen to the audiobook version, is how much of Dobby's speech pattern is eerily perfect. And what I mean by that is it really comes off as knowing now what we know, that he is a house elf for the Malfoy family.
Yeah.
Where he's bound to the Malfoy family. The way that he relates to everything and the way that he kind of says everything that he says, it comes off as someone who grew up in a dark magic household. Because like at one point he even says, when he's talking about Dumbledore, it's not that he's more powerful than you-know-who. It's he's as powerful as you-know-who. Like that was like the biggest thing that Dobby could possibly give Dumbledore. Like, you are that level. And that says something if that's the angle that you come at it from, you know? And I couldn't help but wonder, and I don't think this pans out, but if in the grand scheme of things, the Malfoys knew what they were doing with trying to get Harry to not go back. And like knew that Dobby was, in their minds, a very bad elf. And like, you know, like parents will drop information around children if they want it to be spread, you know?
Yeah, interesting.
If they did that to Dobby, like, I can't believe the plan we're going to be doing this year. Because there's two ways to think about it. They either were purposefully trying to get him to interfere and keep Harry from going back, or they thought of him as literally nothing but furniture and were willing to talk about this crazy plan to put the Diary of Tom Riddle into Ginny's book stack. Like, they literally just didn't, they either wanted to use him or they thought of him as nothing.
See, that's what I think it is. I think they, like, genuinely don't even think he's an actual human. So a house elf slave, especially, I mean, you know, like, they're born this way. They want to be this way. They're, like, naturally supposed to be this way. Like, they're magically bound to serve us. So, like, he's not going to betray us. We can say whatever we want to.
Yeah, the lumps on his skull show that he is a subservient species. Yeah,
oh my God.
Fucking gross.
Definitely reading this, it made me really sad, and it made me wonder why JK, or I think we're referring to her now as that bitch, chose to do this, to, you know, have this kind of species as like an enslaved group. Like, why, you know, like, why did she do that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's always the elves. I mean, I haven't read a lot of like fantasy novels and stuff, but it always seems like it's the elves
like
that are
Santa's
like
elves,
enslaved or like evil, or you know, they're just outcasts in general. I'm thinking about The Witcher.
Oh, The Witcher, basically everything but Lord of the Rings, because those elves are next level. But definitely, like a house elf to me is more of like a Santa's elf than a Legolas. What even is an elf if both Dobby and Legolas are elves? Like, what the fuck?
Well, maybe a house elf is what you get when you cross Legolas with an Oompa Loompa.
Oh my God. Oh,
but
gosh.
also, why are they even called like house elves? Because to my knowledge, there are no other kinds of elves in Harry Potter. So why even call them house?
Maybe it was really just
call them elves.
Maybe it was really just like an acknowledgement of the existing lore around what an elf is. So they're like, this isn't an elf. This isn't Legolas, because we know that bitch read Lord of the Rings.
Right, so about that.
Maybe it's like, this is different. This is a house elf. They have to be small enough to fit in your house and live in like the boiler or wherever the creature lives later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing that I was kind of struck by is because I listened to the episode that came out today, Wednesday, and I was listening to that and the points that were being made about the comedy being made about people being overweight. And then I never noticed that when I was reading it as a kid. It was just like, ha ha ha, fat joke. Then reading this chapter, and it's like, oh, what a cute little slave elf. And like when I was a kid, I didn't even, like, it did not register to me at all. It didn't seem weird. It didn't seem fucked up.
Yeah, like,
just like, they have a subservient slave race of elves.
Yeah,
cool.
like I like have an English degree. Like I've taken critical theory. Like I've taken like Western history classes. I have like, I think we all have like great social context for this now. But like, I really wonder when I was 8 years old reading this book, what my critique of it would have been, you know, like, is this bad? No, he likes it. I have no idea what I made of it back then.
Well, and that's also another part that's kind of fucked up is, that was one of the things that was frequently used back in the antebellum period of the South, is they all the, old land-owning white people told each other, like, if you're a good slave owner, then they really get something from it. They want to be, they want to be led. They want to have people leading them. And it was that fucked up, like, mentality and the cultural identity that, like, this is a good thing for these people to be forced to work and not have.
Well, because they can become civilized Christians and go to heaven with us.
Right. Well, what it also is, it's a way that it has two purposes. First, it makes you feel better about what you're doing because you convince yourself that, yes, this is a better thing for this individual. But what it also does is if you say something enough, people will start to believe it.
Yeah.
And so the people who did face slavery were just constantly belittled and put down. And it after a while, you start to believe your captors. And you think, well, maybe this is, and so they did it for two reasons. It wasn't just to make themselves feel better, but it was also to put that idea into the head of the people. And I think that's the same thing that would have happened to house elves.
Yeah, I think it does. I think that's the spin that we get, maybe a little bit later, when Hermione is, starting Spew and all this stuff. And then she's knitting these little hats for the house elves to find so that they'll be free. And then the house elves end up getting mad and they refuse, they take it as an insult and they refuse to clean the Gryffindor common room. And, so it's like, it's totally like that. They're like, oh no, we don't want to be free. It's like, really?
Yeah, they have Stockholm syndrome.
So, question for the group. Is an article of clothing being given to an elf, is that symbolic or are they magically bound to whomever that they serve?
In the text, later on in the book they go into it is a bound, like you are bound to that household. So Creature, remember, he couldn't disobey an order given to him by Sirius. So, and there's distinctions that I've heard people kind of theorize about, giving them clothes. It's not that what they did was a very loose roundabout way because he never told him to do laundry. He gave him something. And that thing included the sock. So it does seem as though it is definitely a very magical bound thing. And there are higher forces at work.
And in addition, they kind of have to accept it.
Yeah.
Sean, you might not remember this because it's a book plot, not a movie plot, but in book 4, Winky gets given clothes against her will, right? And it's that really, I think it is probably a magical contract that she becomes released from, and not only is she no longer bound to the house, but she might not even have access to the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly.
Jeez.
When if someone ever wants to do a rewrite of Harry Potter to make it a little more PC, update it, for a more conscious world, I've got an idea.
Throw some trans characters in there.
Oh, well, I mean, you'd have to do that just, if nothing else, in spite of
that bitch.
Her. Yeah, that bitch.
She who must not be named.
But crazy idea, okay? I'm pitching it to you. I think it would be cute as hell. You have house elves, but they are not formally bound. Then they are not wearing rags. They are dressed in Downton Abbey servant attire, and they work for a wage for the house.
Aww.
Would that not be the cutest damn thing? I'm here against my master's orders, but I will still need to make sure that you know this, Mr. Potter. A very formal Dobby.
I love it. Give him a lot more agency, too.
I'm imagining a little bowler hat, too.
See, the crazy thing about house elves and all we've been talking about is, they're so powerful. We learn as the series goes on that they have magic that witches and wizards don't have. And we really need a gender neutral term for witches and wizards, but the magic peeps.
Folk.
Yeah, magic peeps. I keep telling myself the word warlock is a gender neutral alternative. I don't know if that's a thing, but maybe we can make it a thing.
I like it.
But I've also had warlock defined as a fuckboy wizard who just lives life on the edge. But house elves are so fucking powerful. Okay, so like in the last book when everyone's in prison in the Malfoy mansion and Dobby gets them out. Oh my god, wait. I remembered what happened next. We have to go back.
Yeah, okay.
Go back.
Don't go there.
Come back to the nice place. Come back to book 2. It's all innocent.
It's all innocent. So, okay, let's start. So it starts with this, like, delightful interaction, which I'm sure really bewildered me as a kid, where, like, this weird animal creature thing is, like, in Harry's room, and Harry is, like, a polite British boy, and he's like, oh, sit down. Instead of, like, danger, get out. He's like, oh, well, sit down, have some tea. He doesn't say have some tea. He doesn't have access to the kitchen right now. And then Dobby loses it. And then Harry's like, I didn't mean to offend you, which, like, makes it worse. He just keeps making it worse. His polite British sensibilities are, like, the worst thing for this situation.
Wait, on top of that, even if you wanted to, like, really react, you can't raise your voice.
Yeah.
So, like, he would have to do one of these where he furiously whispers at Dobby and says, please, can we do this another way? You know, like that whisper that couples do when they're trying to fight, but they are in public.
My favorite line in this whole chapter is Harry, trying to say shush and look comforting at the same time, ushered Dobby back onto the bed. Because I think that really sums it up. Like, this is like a very delicate situation.
Yeah.
But it's also quite urgent. Like, you have to shut the fuck up. So then, oh my god, it just really spirals. And it's like, I think that as a first time reader, you're also really trying to figure out like what is being said wrong here. Like, it's almost like the knights who say ni, right? When they become the knights who can't hear the word it. It's like, what? Like, what? Like, why are you reacting in this way? This is so crazy. So then Harry's like, you can't have met many decent wizards, and Dobby shakes his head, and then he has to punish himself, right? By banging his head on the window, which is probably quite loud.
Yeah. Everything Dobby is doing is quite loud.
Like, just really dramatic. Honestly, the Malfoys probably got, I mean, like, not to be a bitch, but if I had a house elf like this, I'd be like, can you stop? Like, oh my god, you're so annoying.
Christina, Haley would be remiss if I did not tell you that it's because you are not a wizard or a witch. You do not realize that it is all about the drama.
Thank you, Haley, for giving us this gift of our, like, one true catchphrase. No, you're right. But, like, still, I mean, like, we've all seen Lucius Malfoy. I almost said Luscious Malfoy again. We've all seen Lucius Malfoy. Like, he's an asshole. Like, shut the fuck up. Man, he's so sexy in the movies. Okay, sorry, we'll get to that. So then we get a little bit of exposition. I'm a house elf. A house elf must be set free. I'm bound to my family. That's why I'm wearing a pillowcase. That's why I can't do anything without beating myself up about it. And then Harry keeps thinking about Hermione and Ron, and then he's like, it hurts to think about them because they are writing me letters. And then it's so sad.
Obviously, I never had any friends growing up who were kept in cupboards under floorboard, or under the stairs, and
kept under the floorboards, like the Telltale Heart.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, pardon. I never had friends who were kept in cupboards under the stairs, but I don't think I ever wrote one of my friends a letter until I was in college, maybe?
Ooh, you weren't a nerd. I definitely wrote letters.
But did you use AOL Instant Messenger?
Of course.
See, that's a great point, Sean. See, they didn't have
millennial equivalent.
Yeah, they didn't have AIM in Harry Potter's day. Well, and also technology goes haywire around wizards. So, Harry Potter must not go back to Hogwarts.
I cannot imagine what my reaction would have been if I had left the horrible, traumatic awfulness that was Harry's life ages 1 through 10, had gone to Hogwarts and then had this thing shown up on my bed and be like, by the way, you know that one thing you're looking forward to? You can't do it. it would not have been nearly as polite and kind as Harry's response was.
I'm just thinking about when I was 12, like, if my mom was like, hey, you misbehaved and, like, you can't go to your friend David's house this evening, like, I would have lost my fucking mind. Like, that, like, what? That's the only thing in my world right now. Like, how can you deprive this from me? Deprive me of this is probably how you say that better. So definitely being like, hey, the only hope you ever had in your life is just canceled permanently. Like, yeah. Well, and also, like, no offense, but, like, who are you? Like, why should I listen to you? So he's like, there's a plot, but, like, he can't tell anything. And, like, I would be like, I mean, I would just say, I'd be like, no. And I'd probably say it just like that. I'd be like, oh, no. And then I would just, like, scoot him out of my room. Dobby's, like, one of those characters where, like, I objectively know that he's, like, selfless. Like, he's a hero. He's one of a kind. He, like, he saves the story at one point. But, like, damn, he is so fucking annoying.
Have you ever met anyone who doesn't like Dobby, though?
I mean, what did I kind of just say?
Oh, that's why I was like, I didn't really process that, because how do you not like Dobby? He's annoying, like, yes, but he is he's like a puppy that won't stop barking because he's at your feet and like, hey, you're the best. Hey, you're the best. You're the best. Hey.
Ooh, Sean and I are cat people.
It does make a difference, I think.
I just don't do well with, like, a stage 5 clinger type situation. Just, like, for anyone who's ever played Legend of Zelda, it's, like, those little, like, gumball things that, like, stick onto you, and you have to swing your sword in a circle to get them all off, because otherwise they'll just stick to you and weigh you down until you can't walk anymore. Stage 5 clinger.
Those are puppies.
Those are puppies. Would you rather fight 10 Dobby-sized Hagrids or 10 Hagrid-sized Dobbies?
We are not doing that.
Okay, so Dobby can't tell the plot, and he punishes himself because he already said too much. And then Harry's like, well, but Dumbledore is at Hogwarts, I'll be safe there. Like, do you know Dumbledore? And Dobby's like, yeah, Dumbledore's great, but, like, there are powers no decent wizard, ... and then starts beating himself up again.
And that's my question. What was he going to say when he said ...
I think he's trying to say that, like, I think he's trying to imply, kind of like you were saying earlier, Andrew, that, like, his understanding from his time at the Malfoys is that Voldemort is more powerful than Dumbledore, and it's because Voldemort is willing to go the extra mile, so to speak.
Yeah, there's always a continual theme in Harry Potter that the dark wizards always consider themselves more powerful because of knowledge that others are afraid to use. It's like a conspiracy theorist thing. Like, I know more because I woke up, man. I'm not a sheeple. It's like that same thing. Like, I'm so bad at it, I can use this power that you wouldn't dare use. And it's like, nah, dude, I just don't need something to directly kill you. Like, I don't want to do some ancient demon shit to bring myself back from the dead. You know, that's why it goes all the way through to Dumbledore.
I think that's kind of a theme in a lot of, like, fantasy, where it's just like the dark side, or, you know, whatever they call it, is just, like, unhinged, and, you know, they can just, like, let loose raw energy, basically, whereas the light side, or the good people usually, they're having to restrain themselves and be creative. It's that whole, like, I'm gonna destroy all these buildings and all these people are gonna get crushed unless you distract yourself to try to save them.
That's the age-old, how do you know you're on the good side of two warring sides? And it's like, the good side will not kill innocents, but the dark side will kill innocents. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Except for chaotic good characters, sometimes.
Like whomst?
I mean, it exists for a reason. I know that there is one. I just can't think of.
Send us your favorite chaotic good.
Thanos.
Thanos is, okay, we don't need to get into this. I don't know if he's necessarily chaotic good.
Maybe neutral.
I would say, like, lawful neutral.
Lawful neutral, yeah.
No, if I'm thinking chaotic good, I'm thinking, like, 10th Doctor.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do whatever I think is the right thing, even if it means, like, really fucking some people up.
Man, I really need to rewatch Doctor Who. But that's not what this podcast is about. Man, Sean and I both can't fit in this closet without, like, our weird, sweaty, like, knees touching each other and stuff. And, like, my toes need to be where his toes are. Okay.
I haven't moved in, like, a half hour.
Well, I'm a really fidgety person, and, like, people are like, do you have a walk-in closet? And I'm like, you can technically step inside to it, but, like, it's not a walk-in closet. And,
you
like,
have a lean-in closet.
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, a step-in closet.
Yeah, it's, like, recessed. Like, I could hide, probably, like, 8 people could fit in here all standing up. But it would fucking suck. Let's not do that. All right. Where are we? Powers no decent wizard, ... Okay, so then that's when he gets the desk lamp and starts beating himself, which, like, just imagine, like, blindly grabbing something off your desk, like, other things fall down, you know, like, the plug comes out, like, and then he's beating himself in the head with it and yelping. So, like, yeah, Uncle Vernon comes. And Uncle Vernon is like, well, Dobby hides in the wardrobe, and Uncle Vernon's like, you ruined the punchline of my Japanese golfer joke, and, like, damn, I've never wanted to hear a joke less in my life.
What was the punchline?
What was even the question?
Yeah, what was the joke?
What would the joke be that ends in a punchline involving a Japanese golfer?
And
I don't think you need the joke. I think you just need the punchline.
Okay, like, what are the odds that it was, like, racist?
Oh,
like
it was
100%.
definitely racist.
Otherwise, it would just be the golfer joke, right?
Right.
Well, and then later he talks about his American plumber joke, and that was probably racist too.
It's funny because I saw Japanese golfer and I was like, for sure racist. And then I saw the American plumber and I was like, that checks out. That's probably fine.
American plumbers are like a really specific brand of plumber.
I can only imagine if it was specifically about American plumbers, it would have to be something involving plumber crack, right?
Yeah, right?
Definitely.
Because Americans, yeah. We just...
Speaking of which, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Speaking of plumbing.
It was crack.
Speaking of crack.
Christina, I don't know if you've broken out your illustrated edition of this book yet.
Oh, yeah.
But
I think she meant to say.
I'm reading the illustrated edition, and I have this beautiful little illustration of Dobby's butt.
Yes! Okay, wait, let's get to it. Because there is a delightful illustration of Dobby's butt. Okay. Okay, so then Uncle Vernon leaves. He's like, shut the fuck up. I thought I made that very clear. And then he leaves. So then Harry's like, no, you see why I have to go back to Hogwarts, because everybody hates me here, and, like, I have friends at Hogwarts.
Question mark.
Dobby says, friends who don't even write to you? Oy.
And that's when police sirens go off in Harry's head. The woo! Hold on. And he goes straight, like, 90s detective, like, I didn't tell you anything about not getting letters.
I'm pretty impressed. I think that if when I was 12, I might not have made those connections that Harry did.
It's just that Harry's been obsessing about it, so it's really on his brain.
Yeah, it is really on his brain. So then Dobby gives him, like, the ultimatum. It's like, promise me you won't... Well, at first he's like, I'll give you these letters if you promise me you won't go back to Hogwarts. Which, like, not to be this way, but, like, just lie, Harry. Like, just lie.
You cannot.
It's not even really a trade, though. Because if you go back to Hogwarts, then you get to actually see your friends. And you have an awesome, crazy story about some fucking house elf that stole all your shit.
Yeah. So then Harry's like, no, that's a bad deal. So then Dobby's like, but you have to, or I'm gonna, like, fuck up your life, basically. And...
Wait, side question.
Okay.
Since we were talking about the letters and not getting them, is there a wizard equivalent of instant messenger with, like, magic?
I think probably the closest thing is the Patronus messages.
I would think, like, flu powder.
Yeah, well, those you have to be, like, near a fireplace, though, so, like, they're both good options. So with flu powder, you know how they travel in the fireplaces? You can
you can just stick your head through. So if you know the Weasleys are in their living room, you can just pop your head on through and be like, "Hey, what up, mommy? I came to get that broom I loaned you," or like whatever homemakers do. And then there's Patronuses, which is how you can send just a message. Is you like send your Patronus, it says the message in your voice, kind of like a recording, and then it like dissipates. Which we don't get to see until the last book, but it does make for like some pretty badass scenes, right? The wedding when Kingsley's Patronus comes, right? I think it's Kingsley. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, the ministry has fallen. They're coming. Oh my god, it's so badass. I can't wait to get there in like 4 years.
Yeah, for sure.
So Harry's like, "Nah, brah, like I can't. I'm not going to promise you that I'm a Gryffindor. I'm too noble. I could never lie to a stranger who's threatening me." So then Dobby's like,
wait.
Okay.
The stranger who broke into my home after stealing my mail, tried to gaslight me, then like threatened me saying that I can't go back to school.
Right.
Only in an ominous manner, too.
Huh?
Only in an ominous, generalizing manner as well.
Yeah, with like no specific evidence
context
for any of this. Yeah. So then Dobby runs down the stairs, and apparently he doesn't wear underpants because this picture is really delightful, and I will probably post it as today's Instagram photo. But like, it's just it's like when a baby's running around like without a diaper, and you're just like, "What are you doing?"
It's very
The
cute.
rapscallion.
That picture looks like a drunk Danny DeVito, like running away from the cops. It's a delight. We'll post it on our Instagram account. Thanks again to Jim K for these beautiful illustrated editions. So Harry runs after Dobby. God, I just like don't even want to say this part aloud. It's just like really traumatizing. And if your only memory of this scene is the movie and you're like, this could have been avoided. Yeah, in the movie, this could have been really different. But in the book, it's written in such a way where it all happens so fast that you see that there's just absolutely no way Harry could have avoided this. So he's chasing Dobby to try to control him because even, in the movie, it's like, stay in your room and then they'll know you didn't drop that stupid pudding on that bitch's face. But in the books, it's like if there's just a house elf causing mischief, like Harry's like, that is still my responsibility. Like I will still get in trouble for that even if I stay nicely in my room. So he follows Dobby down the stairs to try to prevent chaos, and yet chaos comes. So the pudding is floating, and like before Harry can even do anything, it gets dropped and it explodes everywhere. In the kitchen, right? So the company is in the dining room. The Masons and the Dursleys are in the dining room, but it's in the kitchen, and it explodes, and it's really loud. It goes everywhere, and then crack, immediately Dobby disappears, which like serious, like real dick move. Mm-hmm. So then Uncle Vernon tries to, he's like, "Oh, it's like, my nephew. He has a hard time meeting strangers." Well, and then Harry starts cleaning, and he's in shock, and then the owl comes. And that's just really not good. God, I just like... And Mrs. Mason goes running from the room, and Mr. Mason is like, "My wife is scared to death of birds of every size. This is some kind of fucking joke." And then he leaves. And that to me is so, like, really, like, poor Mrs. Mason, that probably was like the worst night of her life, because I'm sure she didn't want to be there in the first place. But, man, that's the whole shit was just so funny to me. I don't know. Just like... Of course she's scared shitless of birds. It has to be the worst of everything.
Yeah, and he's shouting about lunatics as he's leaving, and of course that's like the Dursleys. Just their worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Well, and, I will go ahead and, since Mike isn't here, I will say, yes, the Dursleys are awful people. Yes, they do not deserve good things. But if I was in a position where, aren't they in the previous chapter talking about like they could get a place in Majorca or something like that from the sale? Mm-hmm. Like it sounds like this is life-altering money that they just lost.
I think that's true.
Do they do things that are awful? Yes. Do they way overreact still? Yes.
Maybe.
Do I kind of understand now that I'm older why you would freak out over something like this? Yeah. I don't think they freaked out the right way. I definitely don't condone locking children in, rooms and putting bars on the window, but I
good
would
to
have been
know.
so goddamn
Good to get that on
pissed.
the record, Andrew.
Yeah, I take strong points, Christina. Strong points.
No, I mean, I get it, but also, like, it's really easy to want the worst for the Dursleys because they have given only the worst to Harry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
This
you'll
is
be
why we can't have nice things.
You'll be fine without this deal. Like, you've been fine this whole time. I mean, it
Just
sucks.
no more drills.
More drills. So the owl comes with a letter that says, like, it's from Mephalda Hopkirk, which, like, this is not the last time we hear from her about underage magic. So then the Dursleys learn that Harry's not supposed to be doing underage magic, which is, like, a great source of joy. Maybe joy's not there, like, vindictive pleasure to Uncle Vernon, who goes on to lock Harry up in his room. He installs a cat door so they can feed him through it. He has to feed.
Why do they have that? They don't even have a cat.
Just because they've been planning on imprisoning him in different ways for a long time. They took the cat door off the cupboard and put it on his new bedroom.
Right.
Grace, when you've been planning on how you can fully torture a prisoner in your own home, you develop these abilities. Things like thinking of the cat or the cat door, and sometimes you might need to procure them just in case.
Wow, I didn't realize how planned out they were. That's really good.
Yeah, you're really behind, Grace. Get your prisoner plan in order, just in case of emergency. It's important to have.
Just like every household needs canned food, a flashlight, and batteries, every household also needs a plan in case you have to take a random person prisoner inside of your house.
It happens. People accidentally take prisoners all the time in movies, and the first one that came to mind was National Treasure, where he accidentally has to abduct that hot blonde girl because she accidentally witnesses him maybe stealing something, but they've been flirting, so she doesn't tell on him right away. Okay, one of my secret guilty pleasures. It's not a secret. I fucking love National Treasure.
I learn so much from this podcast all the time. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, okay. So let's wrap it up. So Harry, first of all, he's getting cold soup, and he has to share it with Hedwig, and Hedwig is not fucking okay. Hedwig kind of reminds me of my cat Penny. Just like, you have no right to act like you deserve all these things, but like, and yet like you're still convincing me that like you deserve all these things. I feel really sad for Hedwig more than Harry in this whole thing. So Harry, just super depressed with a bunch of cold vegetable soup in his stomach, falls asleep. He has a weird dream of being in a cage in a zoo as an underage wizard attraction, and the Dursleys come, and Dudley rattles on the bars of his cage, which is like definitely not a metaphor for him feeling like a prisoner in his own life. And then he wakes up, and someone really is rattling at the bars of his window, which I forgot to say Uncle Vernon put bars on his window. It's Ron Weasley at the window. 2 out of 2 chapters in this book so far have ended in cliffhangers, which I don't think any of them did in book 1, except for the one where he gets to the end of the Chamber of Secrets, but just the chamber that had secret things in it. And then like, it's like, it wasn't Voldemort, it wasn't even Snape. And then the next chapter is like, it was Quirrell. That was the only cliffhanger in that book, but this one, 2 for 2 cliffhangers. So J.K. Rowling's, that bitch, I'm so sorry. That bitch is really getting into her writing flow. She's like, cliffhangers, make them read more.
Maybe we could call her J.K. Rowling because she's a joke.
I don't know if that's a big enough difference from her actual name.
J.K. Rowling.
All about the inflection.
Let me look at my notes. What else did we not get to? Here's a question.
We didn't get to the pudding.
Oh, you want to talk about the pudding?
I want to talk about how magnificent that pudding probably was, but we have no idea because J.K. Rowling did not George R.R. Martin it like she should have.
Yeah, George R.R. Martin writes a good food description.
And I don't know what a UK pudding would look like or taste like, but image, the illustration certainly looks delicious.
I think a pudding, Haley mentioned this in a previous episode, I think a pudding in the UK is like just a dessert. They use it a lot more broadly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the illustrated edition, Grace, that we're both looking at, the chapter header to me looks like a meringue type situation.
I agree.
But in the movie,
I
it's
feel like I
definitely
should-
like a trifle.
Yes. I definitely feel like I should have a better idea about what this dessert is, just based on the amount of Great British Baking Show that I've watched. But
yeah. Sean's gonna look like a baked
Don't know.
Alaska, but
I'm going with baked Alaska.
Well, I just happen to know that she made it a lot earlier in the day, so it's probably not a baked Alaska, which for those of you who don't know, has ice cream inside of it. We watch a lot of Great British Baking Show.
Isn't a baked Alaska also like on fire?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think so.
That would definitely be a cooler dessert.
That would be a much cooler dessert. Baked Alaska is so stupid, and they always cook it in the Great British Bake Off when it's like 110 degrees outside, and they're like in an actual greenhouse. God. My plug for this week is the Great British Bake Off. Just kidding. So, okay, do you have anything else?
I'm satisfied.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad we talked about it.
Well, I think I have the I think it's actually the unofficial Harry Potter cookbook, which probably has Aunt Petunia's pudding in it. I can look for that.
If it doesn't, we should print it off from the internet and throw it in there as a bookmark.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So, that was Sean's burning question. Here's my question. So, like, how did Dobby get so woke? Compared to, like, Winky? Especially living with the Malfoys? Like, how did he get this way? Who did he learn this from?
Well, I think it's probably one of those situations where it's because he lived with the Malfoys. Because he lived with the absolute worst of the worst of the worst. I can only imagine that you can get to the point that you are just have such a deep hatred. That's why everything that's bad to the Malfoys is good. So Dobby doesn't necessarily even know, like, what makes them bad, except for the fact that he knows they're bad people because they treat him like shit. And so I think there's an element to it that's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
But he also treats himself like shit. But is that just the magical contract we were talking about earlier? Like, it's like an actual compulsion?
I would say, in my opinion, yes. He cannot go against that. He would have to punish himself as he does. So that's why it's like, not only does he want to be free, but I think he wants to be free because he sees how messed up it is. Not working for, like, Mr. Crouch, who's going to probably be very professional and courteous to his Winky. But because he was with the Malfoys, he's bound to them. He can't really resist that. But he realizes, it's like, I'm with the worst people. Why do I have to do this? And I think that's probably what spurred the thought process, like, fuck this noise.
You know, Dobby is so in awe of Harry, obviously, all the time. But it's because, you know, I think under Voldemort's reign, the house elves were all treated even worse than they are now. And so I think, you know, for Dobby, his situation didn't necessarily change, but then he saw other house elves situations maybe changing, and so maybe that he was just like, well, why do we do any of this at all? Like, I want to be free. So I think that might have something to do with it.
And probably also, if you live with a family who literally worships Voldemort, like serves and worships him as the greatest wizard to have ever lived, and then you hear that a child has defeated him, then, I mean, your esteem of that child to have defeated this great wizard, I mean, it goes to show, like, I heard you were great, but I never knew how good you were, I think is, like, what he says. Like, I knew you were powerful, but I didn't know you were also a good person, basically. Which is such a great line.
Yeah.
And it is super awkward later in the series with Winky, because it's like, you learn, Dobby's your first house elf, so you're like, this is what a house elf is like a little crazy and contradictory. But then you meet Winky and you're like, oh no, the house elves are fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, this is so bad.
It's so bad. Winky's whole thing is it's so bad they were like, this is just too much to even put in the movies. We simply cannot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Sean, you had one more question you made me write it down last night.
Okay. One that I know you won't know the answer to. So
my favorite kind.
So in the chapter, they reference some, I'll just call them like Wizarding World laws.
It's the International Statute of Secrecy and the whatever for underage wizards, whatever.
So how many of those, and this is just like an open-ended question, how many of those are referenced in the entire series? Like how many individual sets of, guidelines, standards, laws?
Oh.
We definitely hear about the underaged one more than once. Well, because Harry gets this notification now. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a notification. It doesn't have to be on Facebook to be a fucking notification. So then next year when he accidentally blows up Aunt Marge, this is what he's thinking about. And he's like, I'm going to get expelled. But he doesn't, and it's hilarious. But
when this also points out, part of the answer is going to be the difference between like an American legal system and a British legal system. So there's a big difference in that American law is made up of cases. So previous cases, how have they been ruled? How has the judge ruled in these cases? That's why like you have landmark cases like Roe v. Wade that set these precedents.
yeah,
English law is different. They don't have that feature.
they still go by the Queen's decree.
Well, it's things have to be passed by Parliament. So if you think of it like that, then there's going to be a lot of like official acts. So it's made up of a set of documents rather than a set of cases. Is the difference between the law, basically.
Interesting.
And that's what.
So it sounds more theoretical than practical compared to American law, but probably more straightforward, honestly, in the end.
There are pros and minuses to both. The big pro with the style that we have is you have precedent, you have a guarantee. Like if you can prove this is the way that it was ruled and that your case is similar, then you know how it's going to come out. So because of that, there are going to be a lot more decrees, and they do make reference to that later in the book, Sean, to actually answer your question. I know
there's definitely like some throwaway Dumbledore references because he's created a lot of the. I mean, like for example, he'll be like, I think in book 5 or something, he's like, "Yeah, Umbridge, I'm familiar with that bylaw. I wrote it myself, or whatever." There's like a couple instances of that.
Yeah, it was with Fudge, and that's why Fudge has that line about the law can be changed. Dumbledore,
oh yeah, which is like not a dictatorial thing to say at all.
Right. But yeah. So to answer your question, Sean, they do reference certain things, but it's not nearly as much specific acts like that. Like the only ones that are really relevant most of the time in the story are going to be the Statute of Secrecy and the underage wizarding. I can't remember what the formal title of that one is.
I would say probably like they reference maybe like 20 different like laws throughout this series, but like these are the only two that actually matter at all. But then like later when Voldemort comes into power, true power, there's a lot of laws, right? Like the taboo is is that a law that like but I guess that's not a law, that's more like a curse. But you get what I'm saying, like all mudbloods have to like register, right? That's like a law. But, like, it's like a shitty, evil law.
Yep. Fun stuff.
Yeah, real fun stuff. So we've managed to talk about slavery, registries. Let's talk a little bit about something fun. Maybe like a little, like, BDSM. Just kidding. Man, reading Dobby's part aloud, like, I've read this chapter probably like 20 times before, but this is, I think, the first time I've read it aloud, and like, it's hard, like, in my heart to like use the language he uses, you know what I mean? It's like so rough to get in his headspace like that. Mm-hmm. He says "sir" every sentence.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm.
Sean, do you remember reading Chamber of Secrets when you were a kid?
Not specifically. I know that I did.
Was there anything, considering that you're more familiar with the films than with the books, was there anything in this chapter that surprised you?
So, the pudding, the way...
Oh, he always wants to talk about the pudding!
I guess the way that it was used in the film versus in the book. So, like, it wasn't in front of anybody in the book, right? It was just kind of in the other room.
Yeah.
It fell, it broke, whatever.
It seemed... in the movie, like, he threw this pudding on this woman's face.
Yeah,
but
for the drama,
to get it seemed like he was really trying to get attention. But in the book, there's a little bit more like, what happened? How did this happen? Like, maybe he was just trying to get to something and he made a mistake, or maybe he was trying to get attention. It wasn't like, fuck this in your face.
Yeah.
At least to me, it seemed like the book, or the movie rather, is a much more calculated maneuver. It's a much more like planned out, like maximum fuck you, basically. Whereas in the book, it reads almost, it's like Dobby's running like, what can I do? What can I do? Throw it on the ground.
Yeah. Well, which makes it frustrating because I kind of alluded to this earlier, but like in the movie, it's like if Harry was just like nowhere near that, it wouldn't have been nearly as bad for him. But he was like, maybe I should put my hands in such a way that it looks like I did this. You know what I mean? Like, it's really stupid.
I do think that if you have a house elf running around, you got a problem. Like, there's no, like, as much as crashing the pudding will ruin the evening, having a, like, 4-foot tall creature in a pillowcase.
I don't think he's even that tall.
Like, that's going to be, like, a very high-pitched, like, that's not what you're looking for in an evening formal dinner.
The interesting thing is, like, I mean, do you think house elves get formal training, or do you get the impression that they just, like, are born with this kind of, like, deeper magic? Like, do you think, like, little Dobby Daddy was like, here's how you disapparate, and here's how you do a hover charm?
Well, remember, Creature was from a long line of house elves that had all served the House of Black. So I have a feeling you're literally born into it. So when you're born as a house elf, your family probably is already under the employ or labor services, however you want to say it, of a house. And then you're brought up learning how to take care of that house.
Well, my question is that, like, Dobby used a hover charm, which is like a wizard spell that Harry, like, might not even... Is that Wingardium Leviosa? Is that a hover charm? Right? Probably. So, like, Harry had to, like, learn that. So, like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, I think it's interesting that they, like, use the same charms.
Well, it would make sense for a house elf to know a hover charm, though, to, like, lift up furniture to clean underneath it.
But like, I would think it would be different. I think it would have, like, a different energy and not be, like, detected by the Ministry of Magic in the same way.
That's true. Yeah. That's a good point. I kind of always thought that they had their own sort of brand of magic.
Well, because sometimes it really is different.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just assumed that they were born kind of knowing it, as it was like their own type of magic. But that is a good point that it was detected by the Ministry. So
could have been on purpose.
I guess it must be.
Oh, you mean Dobby could have done that on purpose?
Yeah, it could have been part of his
Wait a fucking second. Did Dobby do the pudding thing just to try to get him expelled from Hogwarts?
Like, he might not have been trying to get Harry in trouble with his care parents, his foster... Wait, what?
His guardians.
His guardians.
His aunt and uncle.
Yeah. But, you know, maybe he was more thinking about the Ministry.
That has literally never occurred to me. I always thought it was a really short-sighted, vindictive thing.
No, I thought that's what it was, because it was like that was his last-ditch effort, and so he was trying to get Harry expelled.
Well, in theory, if he was including the Ministry, it could be a double-headed approach. Try and both get him expelled and get his family so mad at him that they don't let him go back.
Oh my god, that has never occurred to me before, and, like, that is so calculated. That's never occurred to me that he was trying to get him expelled, but, like, that's a way better plan than just, like, do this or I'll ruin your night.
Yeah.
Wow,
right.
Dobby. Wow. I'm going to bed before you get me grounded, or worse, expelled.
You're speaking of being, like, a mastermind, though, and, like, almost a prodigy at, you know, planning all of this.
Whoa. We didn't say all that.
All right.
Actually, in all seriousness, like, detecting coming up with the letters plan is genius.
No, but that's what I was going to say, because, like, why reveal that if you're also going to be on that, like, higher level, like, I'm going to try to get you expelled through the Ministry. You know, like, it just seems like two different, like...
I would my no prize answer to that would be Dobby specifically says you can't go back to Hogwarts this year. And I think that that's because Dobby thinks if Harry will just hold back for 1 year, that the thing with the Chamber of Secrets will happen. Whatever happens, happens. And if Hogwarts is around the next year, then maybe Harry could go back. I think Dobby purely doesn't want him there when the thing that he knows is going to be happening happens.
Yeah. I'm just saying it would have been more effective for him not to reveal that he had been taking Harry's letters. Because it was kind of...
He didn't mean to revel.
Yeah.
I wonder if
like your friends aren't writing you?
Yeah.
Wink.
Sean is
wink.
winking a lot. I wonder if he like is unable to lie to wizards, like as part of his like magical servitude. I mean, why not just include that if you're already enslaving him?
Because remember, Sirius has to tell Creature specifically that he cannot lie. And he doesn't tell him that, and Creature lies about Sirius not being there. And that's what leads to the events in the 5th book.
Why the fuck would you bring that up right now?
Listen, there's only 3 major house elves in the entire series.
Yeah.
So
and only 2 in the
one
movies.
of the 3.
Man, God, book 5 is so hard to read. Like, it's like, to me, it's the one where, like, the retrospect makes it worse, like, every time. Like, knowing, you know what I mean? Like, knowing what is happening, it's like, God, please don't. Like, please stop. Everyone, just stop. Everyone stop. None of this is working.
This isn't okay. I'm going home.
Okay, everyone just, like, chat it out. God damn. Oh, God, okay, well, we'll get there in, like, 2023 or whatever.
Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, teaching millennials the importance of communication.
Yo, for real. Honestly, like, I think it was, like, that book that made me realize that, like, 95% of book conflict is just, like, not saying the important thing to the important person. So that's why I just always say everything to everyone all the time, and I will hopefully never be in that situation.
Well, that's kind of like how in the 80s, a large number of movie plots could simply be solved with a cell phone.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, there's so many stories that, like, if 2 people just had cell phones, they would not be issues.
And that's why horror stories always have to be in the middle of nowhere now, because it's like, well, we have to eliminate this issue.
Yeah.
Oops, no cell service. So any last thoughts about this chapter?
A lot more uncomfortable than I remembered.
Yeah.
What a high note to end on.
I know.
Yeah, let's find a high note to end on.
Well, Ron's here.
Oh, sorry.
That was
I
a
did
great
not
bad
mean
joke.
to. I did not mean to interrupt your really beautiful high note.
No, you're right. Ron is here. It's a great note to end on. It's
man.
like what sweet. I do remember reading that as a kid, right? And it's like 2 full chapters of just like, this is the most fucked thing I've ever read. Besides a series of unfortunate events because I'm 12. But then Ron shows up and it's like, oh, thank God.
The only thing that would make it better is if Ron continued the trend of, like, I must introduce myself and all these basic concepts of the first book by going like, Harry Potter, it's me, Ron Weasley, your best friend. I'm here to rescue you. Which I haven't read ahead, so I don't know. Maybe I don't remember it, but it is that blunt. Like, hello, friend of mine.
Well, it is like, through the bars was like a freckly face and like some ginger fucking hair.
Yeah.
And it was Ron.
Yeah.
Ron fucking Weasley. Oh, okay, let's wrap it on up. Any last words? Any final thoughts about the chapter? We get to go to the Burrow next, so I'm really excited for that because, like, it's just so snuggly, and, like, when you're with the Weasley, when you're with Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, like, you're just safe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're okay. They'll never let anything happen to you, and they never, ever do. Oh, Mom and Dad!
We deserve to go to the Burrow at this point.
Yeah, please save us from the worst birthday, and then, well, it's still the worst birthday, it's just not the name of the chapter anymore. It's still his birthday. Literally the worst fucking birthday. Okay, well, let's get into some plugs. That's what we do next. We do plugs. Andrew, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I might have plugged this podcast before, but I'm going to plug a specific episode. There's a Australian podcast called Plumbing the Death Star that if you haven't heard of, it's a great podcast that basically takes all these pop culture questions and asks complete amateurs about them. They do a whole bunch of Harry Potter ones too that are really good. And one of my all-time favorite podcast episodes of all time is, of all time, let me put it in there a third time, is one where they say, what would happen if Professor X from the X-Men and Dumbledore switched bodies? So if like Professor X had been in charge of Hogwarts in Dumbledore's body with Dumbledore's powers, and it is one of the most hilarious things you will ever hear. If you're a Harry Potter fan and you know at least a cursory knowledge of X-Men, it is very entertaining.
Grace, your turn.
Christina, I do not know if you have already plugged this, but I feel on principle I have to plug the book, All the Light We Cannot See.
Yeah.
Finished it. It's so beautiful. And if you haven't read it, I think a lot of people probably have read it, but it is truly very beautiful if you haven't read it yet. And, Christina, have you finished it?
I have about 75 pages left, so that's what I'll be doing.
Oh my God.
That's what I'll be doing for the rest of my day. No, Grace, like, okay, not to like steal your plug, but like I've heard a lot of complaints about this book, and I think it's because it's like over 500 pages long, and it's like the slowest burn. Like, you're still waiting for it to kind of start, and then you realize it's like ending, right? And so like, the book is like jumping back and forth between like then and now, and like now is actively hiding under a bed because World War II bombs are falling around. And then like then is like, how did we get here? So like I find like my now and my then are finally I caught up, right? So like,
yes.
I'm like,
You're in the now.
I'm in the now, and like I need to read this all in one sitting.
Yes. Yeah. So please finish it and tell me what you think, and everyone else should read it too.
Yeah, if you've read that book, definitely hit us up because we've been talking about it a lot as a group and we want to hear your thoughts. I know a lot of people have read it, so hit us up on Instagram or shoot us an email.
Yes.
Sean, what do you want to plug?
Well, at the beginning I didn't have one, but Grace reminded me of a movie called Jojo Rabbit. It is a Taika Watiti directed film. It's whimsical. It's this little kid who is a would-be Nazi.
He's a Hitler's youth.
Yeah. And he is, going through the training, and it's just his coming of age tale. And it's actually quite charming. And you just have to at least watch the trailer because I can't really do it justice, but it's pretty funny.
Do you want to tell them who Taika Waititi plays?
Oh, he plays Hitler. Like a whimsical Hitler. Like the Hitler that is in this kid's imagination.
Like when we say Hitler movie, I know you're not ready to laugh, but get ready for this movie because it'll make you laugh.
It catches you off guard.
Yeah.
Get ready for the blockbuster movie with tons of great humorous moments and that rapscallion Hitler is a comedic relief.
I think it's like really an important movie though, because Hitler's like this big, silly, stupid man baby in this movie. And it's like, I don't know, it's like, yeah, we can talk about this man without glorifying him. He doesn't have to be like he who must not be named. Like,
and I think that Taika Waititi was like a perfect cast
oh my God.
if you know the kinds of characters that he usually plays.
I've always said that like there's crushes and then there's brain crushes. Like you can have a crush on like just the way someone's brain works and no other part of them. And like Taika Waititi is one of those people. Like I just love how your brain works, man. I love it.
I'm also a part-time DJ. I host a radio show right now on my buddy's YouTube called Casual Radio. The actual cast is called Deep Fried Friday, and we go live about every other Friday at like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And you can just hear all sorts of house and drum and bass and from different DJs. So, tune in. It's free. It's live. It's about an hour long.
And if you subscribe to Casual Radio, you'll get notified when that show starts. So do that. I personally vouch for the good music. Okay, so my plug this week, I'm not going to plug all the way We Cannot See because I haven't finished it yet and Grace already did that. So I'll plug the other book, which I finished reading today. I don't know, I've mentioned this on my Instagram feed, but for those of you who haven't heard, ever since I started working from home, I keep what I call a bathroom book because I spend a lot more time in my home bathroom than I used to, okay? So, like, a book of poetry, for example, is like a great bathroom book because you sit down for 30 seconds, you read a poem, and then you're done, and you put it back. And it's a good way to get... I'm not good at, like, just being still, and that includes while I'm pissing. Like, I'm not good at just sitting there, like, gazing into the distance. So, my bathroom book lately has been Sideways Stories from Wayside School, which I haven't read in at least a decade, probably closer to, like, 15 years. Oh, my God, I'm old.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. 15 years ago, I was 14. It was definitely more than 15 years. Oh, God.
Okay.
Oh, God. Okay, so I haven't...
Come back to us, Christina. Come back to us.
Okay. I haven't read it in a long time, but I reread it, and, like, let me tell you, since the last time I read it, I've read probably 1,000 books. I got a degree in English. I got a job at a publishing house where I publish books for a living. So I have... you would say a greater context than I did the last time I read it, but this book fucking holds up, right?
Really?
Yes, it's hilarious. It's so clever. You have to go into it being like, this is for 9-year-olds, because it's like Captain Underpants humor. It's just like, that's fucking nonsense, but it was so fucking funny. I did some readings aloud on my Instagram story. If you want a quick, silly read, just to, like, lift your spirits, might as well, because it's like 100 pages. All the chapters are 3 pages. You can read it in one sitting if it's not your bathroom book. I recommend it. I know that's, like, not a hot take, but it holds up to me in my late 20s. And if you're listening to this, today is my birthday, okay? Today is my birthday when this comes out. So, that brings me to the next part of my plug. DM me on Instagram at @YaGirlOfTheWorld. Tell me happy birthday. Also follow me for cats and books. Hit me up on Twitter at TinaFontina. And just a loving reminder, this podcast is on Twitter at RestrictedPod. We're on Instagram at RestrictedSectionPod. We're on Facebook. Our Facebook group is called the Restricted Section Detention Crew. And we are on patreon.com/therestrictedsection, probably is what that hyperlink is. It's in the show notes. Thanks to Claire. Additional shout out to Claire. It's in the show notes. So just hit us up everywhere. That's it. We're going to the borough next. I'm really excited to get snuggly, get cozy, and get into the plot. All right. Good day. Goodbye. Good day. Get the fuck off my computer. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
My butt bones hurt. And I also spilled a beer like 5 minutes ago, and Sean handled it very well without even fussing at me.
The Restricted Section was created and hosted by me, Christina Kahn, based on the book series by J.K. Rowling. All music by Ryan Kahn. Logo by Michael Hardison. Technical support from Sean Watson. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at RestrictedSectionPod or shoot us an email at restrictedsectionpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, feelings, complaints, conspiracy theories, or lavish praise.
I mean, I do think you're underestimating the power of Dobby having a one-word name. I mean, that's like Cher, Madonna. When those people tell you to do something, you're doing it.
Wow.
Dobby shows up.
Cher and Madonna are kind of next level. I would do a lot of things for those women.
I would do a lot for Dobby.